want to talk to you about authenticity, and it's become important to me recently for two reasons. Firstly, because my daughter Izzy, who I adore, is 16, who I adore, and who will be leaving home in just 2 short years, has started calling me Zombie Mum. And it's because quite often in conversations with her and other people, whether it's every day or networking, my mind can wander off to think about other important stuff or to evaluate the impression that I'm creating to the person that I'm talking to. I'm just not present, and I'm embarrassed to admit, in quite a few conversations really, I haven't got a clue about what we talked about, and I promise not a drop of Prosecco has passed my lips. Now, the other reason that I wanted to talk about authenticity was because I want my business to grow. And in all areas of society, whether it's business, the arts, politics, or love, authenticity, transparency, and integrity are being held up as virtues, kite marks, and differentiators. Authenticity is in. We hate fake. We want people to be real, or at least appear real. I mean, let's face it. You can be odious, a fantasist, and a dum-dum, but if you own it, people will still vote for you. So I decided that to become a better person in life and to help my business grow, I needed to work out how to be more authentic. But I realized I had a problem. I wasn't sure who the real me was. So how could I be authentic without knowing who I am? And my quest to find the answer to that question is what I wanted to share with you today. Now, a few months ago, I was driving Izzy to work when she told me that she's probably going to choose philosophy to be her degree at university. And I said, Izzy, philosophy is pointless. There are a bunch of navel gazers. There's no hard outcomes. There's no tangibles. Why not choose something that will push the world forward, like history? She said, Mum, you need to move on. I said, I'm not old-fashioned. The past can teach us lessons for the future. And she said, no, you need to drive. The light's green. So having some newfound animosity towards philosophers and needing to answer this question, I thought I'd try history first. Now, a lot of our identity is tied up with what we do for a living. And when I was little, we went to Catholic church every Sunday, and I did think that I wanted to become a nun. And then I found out two things. Firstly, the priest is the only one that can do the weekly sermon and the mass. And I realized, firstly, that girls don't have the same opportunities as boys, but that's a whole other talk. And secondly, that probably my calling was more to do with entertaining people than administering the word of God. Now, after a few years, I did find my passions, which were writing and performing. So obviously, I spent over 20 years of my life working in human resources. Now, some people have a vocation so strong they're not willing to compromise. They could no more not be a doctor or an artist or a musician or an actor than breathe. I really did want to perform. I was desperate to do it. But I didn't get into drama school when I was 18, and Mum and Dad said I should get a job. So I did, but I wasn't happy. Eventually, I found my way back to performing, and 16 years ago, I started doing comedy. And since then, I've left my corporate job, and I now coach people how to speak, and I write books and plays and act. So maybe that's it. Who I am is a writer, a performer, and coach. But that doesn't feel right, because I don't believe that who I am is based solely on what I do for a profession. In the same way that being a mother, a sister, a daughter, and a partner don't make me me. They are roles that I play that have standards and expectations attached. So I was back to square one, but I'd realized one of the things that really stops us showing our true selves. These standards and expectations attached to the roles we play are subjective. My version of mother or daughter may be different to yours or my neighbour's or my mother's. Now, I can't speak for the first two, but I know my mum doesn't think I'm upholding my end of the mother-daughter bargain. And that's because 14 years ago, her daughter, me, was married to a lawyer, had a good job as a HR manager and a new family. And now that same daughter, me, is a writer slash performer slash coach in a same-sex relationship, living opposite her ex-husband, sharing care of her granddaughter in some sort of liberal modern Netflix sitcom. One of the hardest things I've ever done is to tell my mum that I had a girlfriend. But it probably wasn't a great idea to tell her in the restaurant at IKEA. I nearly choked on my Swedish meatball because the first thing she asked is, "Which one of you is the man?" Now, although who I love shouldn't define me, it does affect my behaviour because I know some people think I'm different and it impacts how I am with my partner in public and also how open I am about my sexuality in business. Although, I guess the cat's out of the bag now. So having explored my profession, the roles I play in my sexuality, I still didn't have the answer. So I decided to try an internet search. And the best result that came up was a promise that a self-realization ceremony in India lasting 2 hours would not only help me discover my true self, but would also give me permanent happiness and destroy my bad karma in the fire of knowledge. Now, I was a bit skeptical, because it had taken a Catholic priest an hour to wash away my sins when I was just 3 months old. At 46 years old, I don't think 2 hours even is going to cut it. So I gave up on Google. And as it happens, I was working on Twitter when I saw, as you all do, and I saw an article about Nietzsche and finding your true self. Now, I'm paraphrasing slightly here, but Nietzsche said, "The journey of self-discovery is a big bag of poo. You'll only find yourself if you take action, do what you love, and stop running with the crowd." Now, I liked what he said, but that was about doing stuff again, and I'd been down that road. Still, every cloud, because that same article led me to Seamus Heaney, to E.E. Cummings, to James Baldwin, to Khalil Gibran, and eventually to Alan Watts. And through that bunch of philosophers and poets, I got two things: the answer to the question, who am I, and my own existential crisis. I'm sure you're wondering, why wasn't I happy to have found the answer to my question, to have reached the summit of the world's greatest and most fertile existential difficulties? Well, I was, but I was also a bit sad, because as it turns out, I've been missing what it means to be alive. But let me back up a bit. Like many of us, but maybe more so because of my Catholic upbringing, I've always felt chased by my mortality, and it steered my behaviour. I've always been driven, ambitious, and wanting to make my mark on the world. And I'll never forget someone telling me when I was young that I should live my life based on what I wanted people to remember me for, what I wanted people to say about me in my eulogy. And I interpreted that to mean what I'd achieved. Now, as it turns out, our awareness of the fact that we're going to perish could be one of our greatest assets and also biggest failures. Alan Watts said that human beings don't feel able to enjoy the present until the past is cleared up and the future is full of promise. That means we're so busy worrying about what's happened in the past and who we've been or the future that we want to get that we're absent from the present. The trouble is the future never comes. And if we spend all our time worrying about it, we'll die never really having lived. The moment we detach ourselves from the present is when we lose touch with the essence of our being. Having been on this journey, I now believe that the answer to the question, who am I, is there is no I. The second we separate ourselves from now to worry about the future or the past or the I that we're presenting to the world is the second we cease to be. We lose our authenticity and we miss the magic moments of life as they pass us by. Now, I wanted to find some sort of metaphor or analogy to share this revelation with Izzy. And it hit me all of a sudden like a slap in the face. It's the bloody game. The secret to the meaning of life and how to be authentic was in a stupid, pointless game that I discovered 5 years ago. Apparently, 2 engineers had missed the last train home from London, and to avoid thinking about their predicament, they invented the game. Now, the game has just got 3 rules. Everyone in the world is playing, you can't choose not to play, and you can't stop playing. The moment you think about the game, you've lost the game. And number 3, if you lose the game, you have to tell people, I've lost the game. The bottom line is that just like in that game, if we are not present in the game of life, we lose. If we're not being, then we're on the sidelines watching everyone else play. It's a head scratcher, isn't it? I was like, if I can't plan if I can't think. But I think you can plan as long as you're not worrying about things that you can't control in the future. And if it means that if you are focused, if you're working, then be focused and present doing that. If you're playing with your kids, be focused on that. If it's the last day of your holiday, enjoy the view. Don't be miserable in the sunshine thinking about being back at work on Monday. So the lesson I've learned is that life is about experiences and connections. It's not about what we've achieved. It's about how we've made people feel and how many moments of the time allotted to us that we've been so present that the memory is seared into our brain. And I know I've had fewer of these than I'd like, because a lot of the time it feels like I'm on autopilot. And the challenge for the years ahead for me is to be as authentic as I can by being as present as I can. I don't want to miss a single second. And I know there'll be plenty of times that I fail and I lose the game. But from now on, I'm going to forget about it and enjoy the ride while it lasts. Thank you very much.